This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Martin Sully, a brand strategist, designer, and founder of Snapper Studio. And I'm on a mission to help you gain clarity and confidence in your brand. I'll arm you with bite-sized tips and introduce you to friends of the show who are taking their brand to the next level. Welcome back. We have a very different type of podcast today. We're going global as well, so that'll be fun. And when I put forward the idea of making a bit of a different episode, today's guest came up with a really cool idea. But before I tell you what we're doing, I just want to unpack a bit of Joe's background. So first, Joe, your LinkedIn bio is one of the best I've read. It's you're super clear on exactly who your audience is. You pinpoint all the the frustrations of the customers. Those genuine sort of pain points that you would get, and then you just give them this really simple solution, and basically try and help them out. I'm just going to read a couple of extracts. So as the founder of your consultancy, buck stops with you. That means doing the work, wearing many hats, filling new biz pipeline, fitting in family, friends, and fun, dodging shiny object syndrome, feeding the hungry content monster. Your head hits the pillow at the end of the day. Work never stops. All those epiphanies and ideas fly around inside. The next morning, they're gone. You're back into the fray. More work to do, more opportunities to hunt, more content to create to stay relevant. It feels like everywhere you look, someone's creating more, better, faster content. If only you could get help. Turns out you can. You need a thought partner. So welcome, Joe.
Love Very interesting feeling having my LinkedIn bio read back to me. But I guess I'd work with me, I hope.
Yes. So you just work with LinkedIn, is that right?
LinkedIn is my thing for now. Yeah. Basically, I live and breathe LinkedIn. It's where I kind of position myself and how I market myself. I do have a podcast, which is kind of in a little bit of pause in between seasons at the moment. But LinkedIn is very much where I run my business.
And so, I guess with that bio, was it your aim to kind of keep the tone of voice very kind of neutral, it seemed to be almost like that was part of the strategy? Yeah,
look, absolutely. I think when it comes to social media, we have such limited, window opportunity to reach someone who might be looking at our profile or our content. So, for me, my profile, and especially that kind of about section, is really designed as a sales letter, as kind of a miniature landing page. It's obviously there 24/7, available for people to kind of stumble across and hopefully kind of move closer towards understanding me and the services I offer and who I work with. So I have put a lot into really refining that and making it punchy and tell, I guess, a compelling story for the right audience. Yeah.
And that makes sense. The one thing that interested me, and obviously, having a look at it through your profile, is sort of getting an understanding of, your background, like where you kind of, how you came to sort of this, junction where you're currently at.
Yeah. Look, this is something I've been reflecting on for a while, and I've realized, I'm 35 now, so it actually becomes harder and harder to kind of tell the story the longer you go on and progress through the world of work.
I feel that.
Yeah. I guess, to sort of sum it up, really, I think I've always been someone who's quite opportunistic and quite resourceful. And I'm a curious mind. So I've sort of, I studied civil engineering and economics at university because I had the marks to do it and friends were doing it. I went and worked in that field for a little while and realized it wasn't my thing. An opportunity came up to go and play cricket overseas. So I took that. that then kind of fueled a quest for a few years to really, it's that age-old advice of, what are you passionate about? Go and work in your passion. And so, sport was very much that thing for me. So probably a period of 6 or 7 years was all around breaking into the world of sport as kind of the business world of sport, I guess. So had some great roles in some of the biggest sporting events in the world. I was at Wimbledon. I worked on a Rugby World Cup. I was at Lord's Cricket Ground for an Ashes summer. And then, spent a few years in a big sports sponsorship and marketing agency. And really for a while there, like that was very much my world revolved around sport and the business of sport. And that kept that kind of curious mind occupied for a while. But look, life changes and evolves, and started a family, got married, settled down, and priorities change really. And I've just always, I guess, followed my nose. Like I've kind of never been one to really plan too far ahead. The more I go through life, the more I realize that's quite hard to do. And the more you plan, potentially the more disappointed you're going to be, or the less you really can control. And so I guess look to where I am now, again, very opportunistically kind of wanted to build backwards from, I guess, what my wife and I wanted for us and for our family, what our values were and the lifestyle that we wanted to lead. And so you mentioned we're going global. I think it's quite funny. We've got, an English guy sitting in Australia and I'm an Aussie in France having a chat. And so we've got this kind of dual heritage, I guess, this French and Aussie heritage. Yeah. And we want to make the most of that for our kids, like while they're young, before school starts. We want to help them experience both cultures. So
and I get that entirely. And those values of what you hold close to yourself. One of the reasons we moved to Australia was just to give our kids that, we didn't have kids at the time, but, we wanted to give them the best kind of, opportunity to live that sort of slightly outdoor life. And, and we've said if it gets to the point where, they want to head back when they're older and they want to go and explore and do that, you can't hold them back. You just be like, yeah, go for it. We did it. I think, who knows what's going to be happening in the next, 15, 20 years with air travel and things. It's, Yeah,
absolutely. So, I guess like the common thread running through everything for me has just been really being open to opportunities. There's a lot of privilege and I guess luck and good fortune as well that's allowed me to feel comfortable enough to take chances and opportunities and kind of always have some form of safety net, I guess. Which I know that a lot of people don't have or aren't as fortunate to have in their lives either. But as soon as you have an opportunity, I'm always about seeing what we can do to explore it and see what comes with it, I guess. So that's led to a very kind of winding career and life journey, I guess.
It adds colour.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. There's never a dull moment. I think if anything, we struggle the most with just settling into a rhythm, and being in one place and doing one thing at one time.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess the next thing to have a chat about is I noticed in my research that you regularly post t-shirts, post videos with yourself wearing a black t-shirt, and it has the phrase "it is what it is" on it.
Yeah.
I was just because I saw it a few times, and obviously you've got it on now. But I was like, okay, so it's a fairly common phrase, and my brother-in-law, who's married an Aussie, he uses it a lot as well. And I was like, I don't know whether it's it's just where it's come from, or whether it's I just was intrigued, being a sort of copywriter and content person. I thought, oh, let's get into it.
Absolutely. Well, and exactly. And I guess, you're a branding guy. So, I mean, it started out really, I don't even know. I think my wife probably bought it for me. I'm not sure, but it arrived from the Iconic one day.
Yeah.
And it kind of evolved into a bit of a mantra for myself. Like when it comes to, doing like chatting on a podcast or recording a video or whatever it might be, it's just been this reminder to me of not taking things too seriously, and not really. I'm someone who overanalyzes a lot and self-reflects a lot.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just a little reminder for me to just go with the flow, I guess, and whatever happens, happens. And then I think, actually on one of my kind of chats for a podcast, Carly Lyon, who's a branding expert, she noticed it as well. We had a bit of a chat about it, and I kind of realized that actually it is part of, I guess, my brand and my ethos and my approach to life.
Yeah.
And so why not kind of make that part of my visual identity, I guess?
Yeah.
I think the challenge comes when, like, I have to do something in person because I always forget to wash it. I'm always wearing it, so it's sometimes doesn't smell the best. But
you're going to have to get a few copies of it.
I actually had a browse recently, and I don't think it's valid anymore. So I'm just wondering what I'm going to do there. I might have to start making my own. But well spotted. I'm glad you noticed it. Like for me, that's a real sign of someone who is into their branding.
It's I mean, day to day when I get pitched to work with a new brand, that's the first thing I do is literally pull apart every turn over every leaf that I can to find what's kind of out of shape and what else can what's the message that you're sending across. I think that's always been something I've kind of looked at. So going back a bit further, I mean, obviously to the first time we kind of caught up, I watched I heard you on Tim Curtin's podcast, Unemployed and Afraid, and I reached out to you and just said, hey, I loved the episode, and Kim's podcast is fantastic. What was it like as an experience, and have you kind of been on any other podcasts other than your own?
Yeah, so Kim's was the first one that I tested on. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a lot of nerves. What I've realized is I'm someone who is very much, I like to talk to think. Sitting and having a chat to someone really helps me kind of unravel what I think about stuff. And especially, working on your own, working remotely, often working asynchronously with clients and things like that. And to be honest, most of my job as a ghostwriter is to shut up and listen. So I've actually probably found that's really closed down my circle of, like if I'm someone who needs to talk often, to think and to elaborate on my thoughts. So that process of sitting and sharing some of my perspectives and talking to someone has actually really helped me creatively and kind of even in my business just figure out what do I actually think about things and how am I kind of able to land some of these ideas in a more concrete form to build on them. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
No, it's it is one of those things. And we haven't even touched on the fact that you're a ghostwriter either. Yeah. So thanks for bringing that one up. But I guess before going too far, I always, people ghostwrite books and things, and it's based on that's common. But I wasn't until probably about 6 months ago, or maybe a bit earlier than that, I realized people were doing it for people on LinkedIn. And I guess it's not that dissimilar to people, social media managers, managing, accounts for bigger brands. This is just more, I guess, focusing on, one particular company or one person from that company, or is that a good question as well? Do you work with individuals or do you work with businesses?
Yeah. So the way the LinkedIn algorithm is structured, your personal pages, like they're very much geared towards individual thought leaders and individual accounts. Mm-hmm. So, if you have a company page that's got 10,000 followers versus an individual page that's got 10,000 followers, that individual content is going to be seen roughly 300 to 400% more. So, definitely a founder or an executive's personal brand and their personal profile is a more effective channel on LinkedIn. Yeah. And oftentimes, if I'm working with a founder or a solo consultant, they may not even have, like for me, my brand is my name. I don't have like a separate kind of corporate channel either. So yeah, I work for individuals. I do work for multiple individuals in the same organization sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's definitely a focus of that kind of that individual's perspective and what they bring to the world of work.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's something obviously, yeah, you've seen a fair bit of my stuff, and, you know, I liked it. I love to write. I just, you know, sometimes you just don't get the time for it. When you're in the thick of it.
Well, absolutely. And then kind of as, you know, as you read in my bio there, like that is the reality, for a lot of small business owners, and founders, you know, in the early stages. There's so much stuff going on. Marketing yourself and kind of thinking beyond what's on deck right now or in the next month or so is so hard because it doesn't feel urgent. But that kind of always on, that consistent stream is so valuable when you're getting started.
Yeah.
So taking off your plate is the both thing, really. Yeah,
absolutely. I, you know, fully agree with that. It's no different to, you know, in sort of in my world, if somebody's putting together their own brand, and, you know, it's often, I had a case this week where a client called me up and he was like, "Oh, Addy, how do I do this? You know, I've been trying to do it for 4 days. Can you just tell me how to do it?" I'm like, "Why are you trying to do it? Like, just send it over and I can probably do it in about half an hour." It's just like a you know, a really simple design task that you're just like, "Oh, I can." This would be a lot easier if you were just, like, you do what you can, you know, you do your bits, because that's what you're really good at. I'm not going to tell you how to do your nursing role. Let me sort out that side of things and make sure it's, you know, still on brand and, you know, still looks as it should do.
Well, and I think as well that the act of writing can feel quite intimidating for people. And, you know, if you are someone like me who likes to talk, to think, you know, just sitting and having someone like me who sits there and listens, you'll actually pull ideas out and kind of talking about them, and then just kind of helps you visualize them in a way, and you can look at them from different angles, and that's even a learning process. And having someone who then kind of plays it back to you, it's that's a powerful thing.
And it is super powerful. I think one of the biggest things for me has been really stepping back and almost, you know, doing active listening. Like, that's such an important skill for any business owner to really grasp, is that you can have conversations with people. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can have conversations with people in the DMs and really get an understanding of what are the pressure points, what are they, you know, feeling they're really struggling with at the moment, and using that as, you know, and especially if they're either past clients or, you know, people that could be potential clients, like, knowing what really, you know, drives them wild is, you know, half the battle.
Absolutely, yeah. So really, all of my work revolves around listening, and so it's either listening to my client, talking about kind of their customers, or I do actually offer a service where I will interview the client's customer. So I've got a playbook that I run through to really surface what are those real pain points, what are the true reasons that they buy from you or that they work with my client, because it's often
interesting.
The reason a customer works with us is often or the way they think about us as a brand or as a supplier is often very different than the way we probably think about ourselves or how we're trying to position ourselves. And so hearing it from the horse's mouth is super valuable. And just becomes, as you said, kind of just great ammo for more content that's actually going to talk to that audience and get them to reach out and connect.
I have to get you to come and do some interviews with some of my clients' customers and run through your playbook.
I'd love to. I've also got my playbook, which I'll send you a link we can share in the show notes.
That would be amazing.
If you get 20 minutes, 30 minutes with a customer, you know, how you can kind of pull the most using your active listening, asking good questions to get value. I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I see. A lot of people will say, "Oh, just go and talk to customers." Let's talk to our customers. And I think we often, if we do get the opportunity to talk to a customer, we're often asking questions around why. Like we're trying to understand the why.
Yeah.
But why, as a question, often leads the ego to respond. It often kind of has a judgment associated with it. And so you'll find there'll always be a response that you'll get, but it will usually be kind of guarded or sanitized by the ego.
Yeah.
And so really for me, like a good interview with a customer is very much following the concrete stuff, the what, the how, the when, and moving that kind of judgment element away from it.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I've always thought, and you'll know this, pretty much everybody knows the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. And I have a few gripes with that book because for me, it's always been, we'll start with the customer's problem first. And then, like the why can come later.
Yeah. Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek makes me think of Batman, like the Dark Knight. And I feel as though it's like you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. Yeah. And I feel like Simon Sinek now, at the time, like in the, 2009 or whatever that was, like he was the guy, and that video, that brainy YouTube video, that was the thing, like in marketing agency where I was, and that was it, Whereas now there's a lot more kind of growing sort of animosity against good old Simon.
Poor bugger.
And, exactly. Because I think, super charismatic speaker and I, from what I know of him and kind of his story, I appreciate what he's done, but I agree there's definitely some gaps in that kind of model. But again, if you sat in front of a customer and just said, "Why did you buy from us?" that's probably not going to give you a concrete, actionable insight you can really use for your marketing or your messaging. Yeah,
very true. I suppose, all of the industries evolve. I mean, back a couple of 100 years ago, branding was, cattle and, slaves and so really it's come a long way. Every industry is going through that sort of flux as well. Currently with the introduction of AI and some of the things around that. Is there something that you've kind of got involved with, or are you use in a capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. ChatGPT is there on my favorite stuff. But where I really use it is a little bit of research, although you have to be super careful with that because it can be so aggressively and confidently wrong.
Yeah.
When it comes to research. So there's a lot of watch out to that. I think where I use it a lot is you're getting your aim in new perspective. So, just kind of imagine you were a B2B copywriter working in a SaaS business or whatever, what might be 10 things that you would say. So I kind of use it that way. I don't use it to kind of create content. Because it's just never even close really to what you're trying to do. And from a tone of voice point of view, it's never really able to do that. But, so I dabble with it and I'm aware that it's part of the game now, I think.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
Yeah, well, it's similar. Use it for more of a brainstorming, really just kind of, ideation. Somebody asked me if I can put together taglines with just go on AI, just go on ChatGPT. I was like, look, I'll give it a go and we'll see what it can spit out, so fed it as much data as I can physically give it, told it all about the brand that I was putting together. And just the things that came out were just kind of like, none of them hit the mark. There wasn't enough emotion in there. There wasn't enough, it just didn't work. So we just kind of parked it and I went off and, wrote something anyway. But it just sort of made me think it's great for, I'm doing a talk next month, and I had a rough idea of what I wanted to do. And it just kind of gave me a bit of a basic structure of, how I can structure it. And I'm like, that's perfect. I don't need it to write the talk. It's going to be me. But it just a bit of an idea around what topics to cover, and how to structure was, perfect.
Yeah, really useful as a brainstorming tool. The way I look at it now, like, especially as a writer, like as someone whose job is to write for other people, is it a tool that is serving me as a writer, or is it actually serving my audience to use it? And the reality is it's there ideally to make my life easier. And that's but it's not kind of providing better content for the audience. So I think it's just having that lens to it of how you can use it as a support for yourself, but then realizing that ultimately your audience needs your input. That's what's going to benefit them the most.
Yeah, because I mean, the big thing is that Chat GPT or any of the other language models, they don't know your particular experience in that sort of field, so can't add your personality to it. Which is, unless you can custom make a GPT profile, but even then I imagine it's not going to reflect on things that happened yesterday or yeah,
absolutely. And I think as well, for me, like what I've found about the act of writing, similar to talking about stuff, the act of writing is another great way to realize what you actually think about something. And it helps you articulate, and it reinforces that learning and thinking. And so if you outsource that and try and get the computer to tell you what you think or what you should think about something, you're skipping that step. You're not actually consolidating all that learning. So when someone does bump into you in the street or picks up the phone and calls you and asks you for something, you haven't necessarily, done that step of articulating what you really think.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. So, let's get into, you've obviously recently moved back to France. You were there for a short period before, and it looks like you're in like a little village on the border of France and Spain, like right at the top of the Pyrenees. I just wanted to sort of, I would say where you were, but I have no idea how to actually say it. I decided to stick away from that.
Yeah, it's a village called Urin, it's in Basque Country, which is the southwest part of France. A lot of people will probably be aware of Biarritz. So it's about half an hour kind of further south of Biarritz. We're literally about 15 minutes away from Spain on the coast.
Yeah.
Beautiful part of the world. Not dissimilar to the east coast of Australia in terms of you've got plenty of surf spots, great beaches. The food's definitely a little bit different. Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the world. Yeah,
and you're adapting well, and everything's getting used to life.
Yeah, look, as you mentioned, so we have done this before. So we spent most of 2022 living here. So when my wife was pregnant with our second child, our son Max, we made the move over to give birth here. So our son was born in Bayonne, and we spent 9 months of 2022 living here and just getting used to life as a family of 4. So from that perspective, we kind of knew what we were getting into. We know the area, we know the village, and we've got my wife's family here as well, and cousins. So we're well supported and surrounded. And from that perspective as well, it's a relatively easy move. Like there's an apartment here that we're moving into. We've moved into, so we didn't have to find a lease and find furniture and all that kind of stuff. But it's definitely a big adjustment. We've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so our 4-year-old. So we're in Basque Country, and if you didn't know, Basque kind of as a culture, it has its own language. She's going to school, like kindergarten, and it's entirely run in Basque language. So she's basically learning her third language, age 4. and just getting used to all the new people and faces and all
Wow.
that kind of stuff. So, kids are very resilient, but definitely moments when it's challenging, and there's big
Yeah.
feelings and big emotions that have to come out. So we just kind of roll with the punches there.
Yeah.
For me, getting set up work-wise has been different as well. Like it's business as usual for me,
Yeah.
but it's just a change of scenery and getting back into the routines and the habits and
Yeah.
figuring out life on the other side of the planet.
Yeah. And I having
the
been
feeling.
through that experience, it's yeah, you like really. I when I first did it, I took a ton of work with me from the UK. Lived in New Zealand and did a lot of. I had a contract for 6, 7, 8 months, where I just worked for one company. That worked out really well. Gave myself time to sort of explore the island and get a real feel for New Zealand was all about. Before then, just did some freelance stuff after that, and that really kind of working freelance back again in sort of big creative agencies was like eye opening.
Yeah.
So I'd been out of it a while, and I just be back in that sort of atmosphere was a lot to kind of handle, which is how I ended up just running my own business again. It was the right time to kind of do it. We were just about to move to Australia as well, so it all kind of worked out well.
I think like as stressful as sometimes it can be, there's always stress. Like whatever stage or country, wherever you are, there's always going to be stress that kind of finds its way to you. So we're always just trying to, I guess, embrace that and try and do as many of the things we want to do as we can, and just recognizing there will be hard times along the way, regardless.
Yeah, and I think the thing that gets me at the moment is it is really challenging doing all that moving, but also you've got young kids as well. I've got a 4.5-year-old who's big emotions front and center. It can be a lot, and a 5-month-old now. It's a lot.
You're really in the thick of it, but that's the thing. Like you could lock everything down, right, and say we're going to keep the routine as structured as we possibly can, and we're not going to go anywhere, we're not going to travel, we're not going to see anyone, we're going to just focus on, the 4.5-year-old. You will still have the same explosions, and I think we've kind of realized that as well. You may as well have a tantrum on the carousel in San Sebastian in the middle of summer rather than, in the supermarket in Woolworths in Wollongong, because you ventured out on a Sunday morning, and it wasn't the right time. Like, I think it's just, it's part of the course. It's going to happen. That's just how you kind of roll with the punches along the way.
Yeah. I mean, like, those things are the things that teach you things about yourself as well. Those, you can't replace them. So let's start getting into the juicy bit where we kind of had this wild idea. I approached you. Well, I wanted to get the idea to get across your skill set and asked you if you had any fun ideas. So can you just give me a bit of a brief explanation, or give the listeners a brief explanation of the idea?
Yeah, well, I thought we could open up your LinkedIn profile and have a look and see where there might be some room for improvement, see what's working well, but maybe we could just do a bit of a glow up on your LinkedIn profile.
Sounds good. I'm gonna then use all the notes afterwards, and you're gonna be looking at it in like a couple of days' time and be like, geez.
Heck.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, free consultation, why not?
Yeah.
So I have actually had a quick peek at your profile before jumping on the call, of course. Should I just get straight into it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so if I start with your profile photo, I think it's really strong. I think so when I look at the LinkedIn profile photo, I actually think of it more as an icon rather than a photo.
Mm.
Icon in the sense that it literally needs to be iconic. So when you think about how it's going to be displayed on LinkedIn, it's often displayed at a very small size.
Yeah.
So it's less about what does Martin look like, and it's much more about how can we make this icon recognizable for people when they see you in the feed. So your photo here, you've got it on your brand palette, you've got a bright green border around it, so it's going to really stand out when it's queued up in that bottomless scroll. And I think it's a nice kind of silhouette there. So for me, it's not about the quality of the photo so much as, is this going to be iconic? Is this going to stand out when you comment on something or post? So I think the photo as an icon does a really good job there. So I wouldn't, no notes on the photo. I think that's good. And so for anyone kind of listening, wanting to update their profile photo and make it more iconic, just think about whether it's even the clothes that you wear. You know, how can you sort of break up the colors and imagine your photo displayed as a tiny little button on the feed. You know, how can you make it recognizable at small scale? So I think you've done a good job of that. If I then look at your headline, so branding nerd and founder of Snapper Studio, co-founder of Chatterbox, host of the Level Up podcast. So look, you've obviously got kind of three things going on here. Nothing really wrong with that. I think for me, like something like branding nerd gives me a bit of a clue as to, I guess, what you're into. And I'm guessing then Snapper Studio is logically going to be something in the world of branding. But for me, it's not super clear kind of what you do, who you do it for, and I guess how you help. So for me with the headline, it's just being very clear. And ideally, if you have kind of a target audience in mind, like is there a specific type of business that you're looking to work with for Snapper Studio?
Yeah, so I'm actually just transitioning that now to more brands in the kind of jewelry world. I've been spent the last sort of 5-6 months doing that predominantly. Yeah.
Okay, and how did that opportunity or that kind of target audience come about?
So directly through consultancy, I've been kind of handling all the branding aspects of working with the consultancy, and they only work with diamond, gemstones, and jewelry brands. So from that, it's made sense that, and that sort of base of knowledge is now really easy to transfer. A lot of the clients that I have been working with have been all over the world, but I've got zero jewelry clients in Australia. So I'm like, it's a perfect opportunity to kind of really kind of bring some of that expertise from across the world here.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think often when it comes to writing and things, we're trying to come up with this kind of witty, super clever sort of tagline or headline, but if in doubt, I would just be really, helping Australian jewelry brands get noticed, or, whatever that kind of value prop is. Whatever the target audience is, just making that as clear as you possibly can. And potentially just honing on this. So when I see co-founder of Chatterbox, it's a little bit intriguing. Like at one level, I'm kind of wanting to know, I wonder what Chatterbox is. But if we think about, again, kind of the audience and in context of LinkedIn and social media, flying past your post or your comment, do I have the time to kind of reflect and then dive in at that moment, or is it just a bit unclear, a bit confusing, and I just keep going?
Yeah.
So I think my overall guidance would be, if there's kind of one focus thing for you, if that's Australian jewelry bands, hone in on that, call it out, and make it really clear. When I look at your banner, I like the palette, and it's obviously on brand. You've got your company logo there and all that kind of thing. Level up your brand is the tagline. For me, and the way I've approached mine is if you can flip that into a question that talks to a problem that your target audience is facing.
Yeah. Okay.
So, whatever that pain point might be for an Australian jewelry brand, something that makes it clear you're talking to them, and I guess, again, getting as specific as you can. So for me, like mine at the moment is, are you struggling with your sales and marketing engine? Because I know that a lot of solopreneurs, a lot of consultants are kind of focused on the work in front of them, they might get a lead here and there from ad hoc sources, but they actually don't have an engine, a sales and marketing engine that helps them find new clients consistently. And so I talk to that pain point in my banner. So
Yeah.
I think the layout and everything's all great, super simple. I think just you could figure out a question you could pose on that banner to your target audience to really punch that up. What do you think, like in your experience and kind of some of the work you've done so far, what do you think the jewelry brands are struggling with or looking for?
Yeah. A lot of it is, increasing their brand awareness or building that trust up. So like, you can't just go out there and start selling rings and things for, whatever the price is, how like that trust is being broken by the industry itself of, if you're going in there and buying a $10,000 ring, is it really $10,000 worth of, jewelry? It's an interesting thing that, it's just been, I think there's definitely, finding something in there, and helping people realize, it's based on the quality of the craftsmanship and, everything else that goes into it and, level of care that you get afterwards when you've bought something, whether it's, that experience that people get. Yeah, there's definitely something in there.
Yeah, and I think even just listening to you talk about that specific audience and that type of business, you can already feel how much more specific and relevant you can get than level up your brand. There's a few different threads in there you could be pulling on that would really talk to a new Australian jewelry brand that's trying to build that trust. So I think drill down on that, like double click into that and see what.
Yeah.
So then onto the about section. Now, bear with me because I've been living in France and the French are very direct. It always comes from a place of love, but the French will tell you what they think, right?
Yeah, that's
and so
okay.
when
I'm used to it.
When I read the about section, it starts with, "Hey, I'm Martin." On social media, every single word has to do the lifting. If we think in context about realistically, where's someone reading your profile? They're either spending the 3 minutes that a meeting finished early or waiting for a meeting to start.
Yeah.
Or they're doom scrolling in bed 5 minutes before they fall asleep. Or they're on the toilet.
Yeah.
You've got, like, if we're realistic, you've got a super finite window of time.
Yeah.
And so if they've clicked in your profile, they've seen something you've posted, they've clicked in, they've absorbed your headline, your name, your photo, to then kind of scroll down and kind of remind them that you're Martin, just it's not needed.
Yeah.
By this point, they're all over that. And so I think, you continue then branding nerd and owner of Snapper Studio. So we've kind of then got the headline again.
Yeah.
You've potentially lost them, or they've just run out of time. The meeting's starting, they're jumping into Zoom, they're closing LinkedIn. And so, like my bio that you read out is very targeted as a sales leader. It just gets straight into it. And so I think that's my advice. Is get straight into, like, again, what's that super, super painful issue that your new Australian jewelry brand is facing?
Yeah.
What's that founder, that business owner dealing with right now? And push on that pain point as quick as you can. And really, for me, the reframe with the about section, and this has been a big shift in LinkedIn. LinkedIn, when it started, was your CV online. And so about was, like, in brackets, was about me.
Yeah.
I actually think about is now in brackets about your customer or your audience.
Yeah.
It's actually not about Martin.
Yeah.
It's about your audience. So flipping that around.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, we don't go on there to, just make a few friends and tell them about, unless you, especially if you're in business, you're there for a reason. But if you're an employee and you're just looking to sort of, then maybe it is more, about what your career has been.
Yeah, so look, and I've been thinking about this as well, right? I'm prepping for the call. I actually think even if you are, so let's say you're working in corporate, you're an employee, maybe you're going to go for a new role, or maybe there's a recruiter that looks at your profile, or a senior manager in your organization. I think whatever the context, like that person is time poor.
Yeah.
They might be looking for something. And what can you do? How can you think of it differently that stands out? And as well, if we look at your LinkedIn profile kind of in totality, remember we've got an experience section underneath the about section.
Yeah.
So, you know, for you in yours, you go into kind of from what you did from 2008 to 2012 and then on to 2015.
Yeah.
That's all interesting information at a certain point in time in the story. But we do have, you've got the experience section where that can all live.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so where you're an
a lot of it is
employee
probably in
or
there.
yeah, exactly. And I think, so you've probably got a bit of double up there.
Yeah.
So the way I think about the about section right now is 2 minutes to kind of talk about what makes you unique, but more importantly, what are the problems that you solve, you know, for a hiring manager, for your target customer, if you're in business, whatever the audience is, but how can you help them? You know, that's really what people care about when they're on your profile. And so I would gear up the about section to focus on that as much as possible. All that valuable experience and that kind of social proof of what you've done is there, but lower in the experience section if they want to keep on learning.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense.
Like I like it, and I think as well when I read the about section, it was probably also more from a time when posting content regularly was less common. So you sort of had to try and tell the whole story in one place.
Yeah.
Whereas now if content is part of your strategy, you might be telling the story about when you moved to Newcastle and setting up your company and some of those different experiences, how you founded the studio and all those things. So you sort of have more of an ecosystem now.
That makes sense.
Tell that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's this feedback going down for you?
Yeah, fine. I a lot of it I knew was needed to be done, especially as you know, things are just about to shift. I've got this kind of new membership subscription coming through.
Cool.
Like, that's going to change things as well. Yeah, it was going to change at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's the thing as well. Like we do get, like we were talking before we kind of came on air, we do get caught up in doing all the work for clients. I often feel like the chef that feeds himself baked beans on toast for dinner because you get so focused on feeding everyone else by the end of the week. Looking at your own LinkedIn profile and tidying up is just the last thing you want to be doing. So completely get that.
I think especially because it kind of feels like a fairly big job in some respects. We'll get around to it.
Definitely one of those things you feel as though you can just come to it later. One thing that kind of helps me push into action with, and obviously this is my bread and butter, right? It's very much my shop window, so I need to make sure that it's on point. But you kind of have a peek at how many people are looking at your profile each month. Like as a business owner, thinking about, trying to find new leads or prospects, like that can be quite a compelling number to say, hang on a second, if I'm telling 30 people a month the wrong story, or I'm losing the attention of X people per month, what does that opportunity cost me?
Yeah, interesting.
That's something that's kind of spurred me into action. You're kind of just handing out an old CV to a bunch of people every single day without even necessarily realize. So
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what's the norm of profile views. I mean, what would that sort of statistic be?
Look, depends so much on so many different factors. If you're creating content regularly, then you obviously get that number right up. If you're not, if you're relatively dormant, then it's going to be relatively low. But there will be a group of people that are looking at your profile on a regular basis.
Mm.
One thing I did want to say in your kind of activity section here, I noticed you've pinned a document to steal your secret
Yeah.
sauce, a carousel that you've
Yeah.
done, and I think that's a really good idea. So that's something that's kind of giving a bit of, I think of it as showing clients onto the factory floor, showing them
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
about what your process looks like, how the sausage is made. And so I
Yeah.
think a document like that is a good asset. You've obviously spent some time
Yeah.
building that asset. So
Yeah.
heroing that is valuable. How is that at Carousel? Has that helped you as a bit of a sales and marketing asset?
I don't know whether, I mean, I've only just recently pinned them, but I thought I saw somebody else do them and I was like, I didn't know you could even do that. I think that's it's a really cool feature just to be able to, kind of give people a bit of an understanding of, what your thoughts are around branding and some of the things that you can do, like the secret sauce recipe, you can, is around scent branding, and scent branding is like relatively unused concept. Like we all know, companies like Subway, like they pump out smell left, right, and center. Like like from 50, 60 meters away that you're going to be walking past a Subway soon. It's kind of like that unmistakable kind of, I don't want to say stench, but yeah, it gives you a bit of an idea of what you can do. It's really, like there's so much you can do with it. But yeah, when I saw it, you could pin them. I was like, yeah, that's a cool idea. I like that. I think that'd be good. And obviously it gets like however often you post, a document or a carousel, they get updated as well. Which is
exactly. No, it gives you much more. Like obviously your about section is just plain copy, so you're quite restricted in what you can work with and what you can show. But the document, like you've done there, it's obviously on your brand palette and images and all that kind of stuff. So it's a super versatile tool if people are kind of making their way through that journey of your profile. I think that's a really good asset to have. So overall, I think the visual ID and everything is strong and memorable. I think you could, tweak a few things to just really make it jump out for your target audience and really revolve it around the audience rather than about kind of you and the studio and make it much more about them and their issues and how you help them with those.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people, if they were to listen to this, obviously go back through, obviously reflect on what you could do and how it would work for you. I think there's a lot in there to kind of unpack and say, okay, is my icon on my header, are they enough? Is my headline doing enough, for me? Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Joe. I truly appreciate that.
No worries at all. Yeah, that was actually quite fun for me to go through and talk out loud as well.
Yeah, I think those things are great. Auditing somebody, if that's something you regularly do, like this will get cut up and you can point out, if you need clips and things, and great, use it as a sales tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as well, even in kind of just getting ready for this, I think I'll need to take all my thoughts there and actually pop this onto a playbook, onto a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
As just a handout that I can use to share.
Yeah. And you use Notion, don't you? Because you've sent me one of your Blaze books before. Super, like really good tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan
and
of
you
Notion,
can, and you can brand it up and, make it look like you.
Yeah.
Is there anything I was going to say before you go, and I typically sort of ask everyone, is there a particular topic you want a sort of better understanding of in around branding?
Yeah. Look, I think, so the thing that's interesting for me is almost the hierarchy of these ideas, like marketing, branding, communications, how they all kind of sit together. I've been thinking more and more recently about the idea of personal brand and personal branding. And I think it just means a lot more people are realizing it means so much more than just your logo and your photo and your colors and things like that. That I guess,
Yeah.
how do you see the definition of branding? Like, what does it encompass?
Yeah, I guess so. Like that really, for me, the the branding kind of sits over everything. It kind of, I don't want to say it pulls the strings and keeps everybody in check, but it really, I guess it really does, it does set up the, I guess, the tone of how you want to approach people, how you want to, um, and it's very much looking at it from a long term perspective, whereas marketing, you need marketing, and like there's always, there seems to be like this argument between like which one should you do more of and which one should come first, and like they both need to be done, and like there shouldn't be any argument. Like they both need to work together to be able to find this kind of uh the branding, it looks at your long term thing, your marketing purely concentrates on how to get that brand out there and how to spread the word and how to increase your brand awareness and make sales. So like, and the communication part is is another vital part of it. Like if no brand strategy can work without having a good copywriter or somebody that knows and can kind of put together thoughts on paper, it's they're all just like if you can and you've got the resources, like invest in all three. It's it's like long term you'll benefit massively from it. Yeah.
And the other thing I always like to ask is, what's the kind of the most common mistake you see people making, like your clients making when you first meet with them? What's the biggest issue you see?
Generally, I think a lot of it is coming from a point where they had brands when when they first created a company 15, 20 years ago, and there wasn't much thought that kind of went into it. They just kind of felt like they had to get a website up together, got a website together, and everything else kind of flowed in after, sort of around the fact that they needed a website. So the brand took a bit of a backseat to actually having a website together. And so they quite often, there's problems in around that because they've got a name that was purely picked on, it ranked well in Google. That's, that's been a sort of determining factor, is not whether it's, relevant, whether it's emotive enough for the audience, or whether it's picking up on something that's really sort of takes them to the next point. And quite often I look at them and think, how do they go through all of that and they're still here and they're still trading? And I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Sometimes it is, even for myself, as soon as you fix a problem or you made something better, you think, how was I doing it like that? How did that ever work?
And that's
and where did Snapper Studio come from?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually, for a long time, just had I've got an affinity with the sea and swimming, and just kind of taking that sort of journey that snapper and fish go on. Really became like sort of indicative of me taking businesses on that sort of like this journey of discovery and really creating something. And a little bit portion was when I was in a bit of a flux, sort of mid-COVID or during the very beginning of COVID, where I had a business called it Martin Sully Design, and I really had kind of outgrown that because I'd started doing like videos and photography, and like there'd been so many things that I'd just started doing that the name no longer kind of fit. So I really wanted to kind of stretch it a little bit further and be known as a studio. So a studio in the sense of like that sort of creative agency, rather than a studio in that sort of photography video sense. So it really came from there. And I think, to me, it, rolls off the tongue nicely. yeah, it's quite, nobody else had it as well, which is, perfect.
I like it.
But yeah, have you got be keen to know sort of, what your long-term sort of plans are, or the next sort of stages you're kind of pushing towards?
Yeah. So for me, ghostwriting, copywriting, any kind of content creation is a very hands-on exercise. So I'm trying to diversify and kind of expand my business model to have some offerings that I can develop and kind of package up once and then sell multiple times, like a more repeatable, a kind of scalable model. So, at the moment, I'm building out some workshops that I'm testing and piloting with my audience for free. I've run a couple of them for corporates and for organizations. And so I want to get to a point where I can create that IP and then go and sell it and deliver it without always having to start, at the blank page and create content and submit it. And you're always under deadlines, kind of in my line of work, which works really well. And, I'm happy with my pricing and how that all works. But I'm really at a point where I'm trying to document and refine and nail down my IP so I can package it up and sell it in a more repeatable way.
So, and it sounds like an obvious one, but how can people reach you?
The boss of LinkedIn. I'm scared to admit or even think about how much time I've spent on LinkedIn in the last couple of years. But look, that's where you'll find me.
Yeah, awesome. Catch you on the next one. Cheers, mate.